Welcome everyone to the Arkansas Art Center. My name is Todd Herman, the Executive Director, and this is one of many exciting days to come on our Art Center project. This is the first of many sort of community engagement forums that we're going to have going forward in this project so that we can get feedback from both those folks who come regularly to the Art Center and those who maybe have yet to experience our wonderful programs and collections. So we want to hear from everyone in the community, or as many people as we can, to find out what it is that you all are looking for in an Arkansas Art Center. What it is that makes you want to engage with the programs and the collection that we have. Today's format will be a little bit different from those. Those going forward will be a little bit more sort of conversational. In this one, we have the pleasure of having Jeanne Gang here to give a presentation to us today regarding Studio Gang's philosophy regarding architecture and sort of how that philosophy we can sort of superimpose on what this project will be. I invite you to see Jeanne's TED Talk, which you can go visit. It's about community engagement, and that is something that was a key goal of this project from the very beginning when talking to all of the architects and then the architect selection process. Wider community engagement and engagement with the park were critical issues that we wanted to address with this renovation and expansion of the Art Center. So it's no surprise that a firm was selected that really focuses on that aspect of community engagement through culture and through the arts. So I want to also introduce, things are kind of moving quickly as they will in projects like this. So while we did announce Studio Gang as our design architect, maybe, what was that? Was that a month ago? A month ago. Just a week ago, we announced the local architects who will be the associate architects on the project working with Studio Gang, and that is Polk Stanley Wilcox. We have representatives from Polk Stanley here with us today. So when we get to the question and answer session, it might be kind of any one of the three of us kind of answering questions, depending on what the question is. So why don't I turn it over to Jeanne, because I want to give her the most time to talk about what the firm does. If you haven't looked up the firm already or looked up Jeanne, I'll just give you a quick, really quick rundown. The firm was named, let's see, Firm of the Year last year, Architect of the Year this year, Architectural Digest Top 100 under the Innovators section. Let's see, numerous awards, MacArthur Genius Fellowship, TED Talk, obviously. What else is in there? Virtually any award that you can think of in architecture, they've won it. She teaches at Columbia and at Harvard and at Rice, and currently teaching at Harvard and Cornell, I believe. Oh, MIT. So the long and the short of it is she's really good and really smart. So that's really kind of all I needed to say about that. So without any further delays, I think Jeanne Gang.
Hi everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? All right. Well, thanks for the introduction. It's embarrassing sometimes that they start announcing awards, because I just want today to hopefully be about just getting to know me a little bit and through some of our projects. So I'm going to show 3 projects that we've done in the past. None of them are exactly similar to in the Arkansas Art Center, because I think this place is really unique. But this place really does have a strong community anchor. It is a strong community anchor, and it's set in this park setting, which I think is really an important part of the project. And it's about bringing community together. So I think these projects that I'll show you have some of those qualities, and hopefully bring up thoughts for you or questions that you can ask me later afterwards. So today is just kind of, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself and our practice and these three projects. Some people might know us for the project that was recently announced, is not completed yet, but is in development for the American Museum of Natural History, which is in New York. And we are designing a new wing onto the building. And it kind of reminds me of this project, actually, because this is a campus. You might know the museum from Night at the Museum, the movie, or you might have already been there. But it has 25 different buildings, and we're inserting into it a new entry that will be a focus of science and education. So that's coming up, and hopefully I can show you more on that later. Another kind of interesting building we're doing that's in development right now in Beloit, Wisconsin, is turning a former coal-burning power plant into, believe it or not, it's ironic, but a health center and a student center. And so as this power plant went out of service, they sold it to the college, who had always wanted to have a student center and a health center and a recreation center all in one. And so it's really interesting. It's a really interesting project, how to preserve the history of this building, but take advantage of the big spaces that are inside. Some people might know me for the Aqua Tower, which is an 82-story high-rise in Chicago, which has a hotel and apartments and condominiums in it. And the unique thing about it, it has all these balconies on the outside of it that people can step outside and even kind of be part of the city and part of the building at the same time. You don't normally see balconies on tall buildings, but it's a way to connect this building, connect people inside the building to each other and to the city. And that project, as well as the Architizer Center for Social Justice Leadership, which opened in 2014 in Kalamazoo, Michigan, which is it's an academic building on campus, a study center, a seminar space, made out of this really interesting cordwood masonry. So it's made of using wood, logs, almost like you would use bricks in the wall, which is a very sustainable way to build. And this project has received a lot of awards. So you can see by the projects I just mentioned, they're very, a lot of different types, a lot of different sizes, from 82 stories to 1 story here. Some mixed-use buildings, some buildings that are reusing old buildings. And you know, I think that's one of the unique things about our practice, is that we're really, you know, we want to do these diverse projects that have impact. And that's what drew me to the Arkansas Art Center. I thought that this was a project that really, it already has a lot of good things going for it, but it seems that the facility itself is kind of holding the organization back. And so that's a chance for architecture to really do things. Personally, I grew up the daughter of a civil engineer, and you know, we used to go around on all our vacations driving around to see bridges. Like, you know, you name it, the longest bridges, the shortest bridges, the tallest bridges. But it gave me a chance to go all around the United States, and really developed a love of the American landscape. And I think one of my favorite things that I ever saw when I was a kid that made me want to go into architecture was seeing Mesa Verde, which was, you know, like kind of the combination of landscape and architecture in one, which I thought was so impressive. I started my practice in Chicago, which is, you know, pretty much everyone knows the downtown area of Chicago, and which is really, it's like an American city with a lot of high-rise. But there's also this other side to Chicago, which is, you know, its landscape, which is, it was originally a swampland, and it was home to a lot of industry. And in the wake, as industry started to leave, there's, I think the biggest problem facing Chicago is probably this post-industrial landscape, which is all around the edges where the industry used to be. And so as a person who is very interested in environment, this kind of landscape actually caught my imagination. That hill in the background is not a real hill, it's a landfill, actually. So how to kind of repair this landscape and make it possible to bring it into the city use. My office is located in New York and Chicago. In Chicago, we're in this building that was the former, it was called the Polish National Alliance. It was a credit union for recent immigrants in Chicago, which a lot of whom were Polish descent. And so it has like, you know, it's an old 1930s building, but we've renovated the inside and added a space on the roof. And in New York, we're in this, on Wall Street, basically. But that's where a lot of the design firms have moved into. We're actually on Broad Street there. And both offices work together in a collaborative way. Because of technology, we can actually meet on a daily basis when we're not even in the same town. But a lot of our work focuses on making things. That's why I went into architecture, really, was I love to draw and to make things and to think about, to use my imagination to think about space. And so we designed our office to allow this kind of fluid collaboration. And it's not unlike kind of the art school itself here at AAC. We have spaces for pinning up, spaces for making and drawing. And then, like I said, on the roof, we built this pavilion to allow us to have, to reach out further to our community, to have interesting and engaging conversations about architecture, but also about projects. We have a green roof there that we planted that has something like 48 different species of Illinois plants there. That's a kind of an experiment of a what ecologists call a sky island, a place that has biodiversity on the rooftop. We also when we do projects with communities, sometimes we meet in our space, and we've had some really incredible, engaging conversations recently about a site on the south side of Chicago where we had students and industry leaders. This man is a physics teacher. On the left is Charles Adler, who was the founder of Go Fund It, and he has been involved in some of these conversations. We have pinups there. These are some students in our space, and then like big, pretty large meetings. But this has allowed us, as an architecture firm, it sounds maybe incongruous, but it really is important to create these spaces for conversations. And so that's what I really like about having our own space. The first project I wanted to show is called the Nature Boardwalk at Lincoln Park Zoo. And this project, oftentimes we're asked to do something like here was to design a pavilion so that the zoo could have students come and learn and do classes here about nature. But a lot of times what we found is, what is on the brief or what people are asking for isn't necessarily going to just answer the real issue, which is what the organization really needs. And so usually in the beginning of a project, we'll step outside and zoom out a little bit to see, what is the real issue that's impacting that organization. And here, even though they wanted this pavilion, which they got, there was also this other issue was the pond itself that was part of the site. There was a historic building on the site, there still is, this is still there, a Cafe Brower that was built in 1908. And it was located on this pond, which is only 3 feet deep. And so the pond over time, it became polluted and smelly and just the kind of, annoyance. Because really the pond was designed just to be this reflecting surface like you see in the image. And over time, what had happened is the edges of it had, come undone, not a lot of maintenance. It was part of the park district, and then the zoo was taking it over to improve it. So they took a lease on the park district property for 50 years. There was rusty bridge and things like that. So what we realized was that to improve this place, to think of it as a place, not just a pavilion, we really needed to improve the entire pond, the health of the pond, the ecosystem of the pond. And so we asked them if we could bring together a team that would be able to address this issue. So we had landscape architects and water ecologists and other members of the team, hydrologists, to try to understand the way that this pond was functioning. And what we discovered was that if the pond were made deeper, like instead of 3 feet going to like 20 feet deep, the water quality would improve. And if we ripped out the edge and put a planted edge around it, we would be able to filter the runoff water and to clean it as it goes in. So they were interested in this approach, and we went ahead and did this entire pond rehabilitation, and you can see here the boardwalk. So now these edges are planted edges, and the pond is actually working as a stormwater infrastructure. It's holding stormwater, keeping it from flooding people's basins and so on. And architecturally, it still needs, the thing is, I think architecture has such a strong ability to inspire people and to make a place really exciting. We decided to build just a simple arch made of this pre-engineered wood that's bent in 2 different directions, prefabricated, and it comes together with these fiberglass pods on top to create this really interesting pavilion, which is, it's very light, and it's stationary, but in a way it's very interactive. And people really like to, get it into those little holes and engage this pond. Here it is on the left, upper left, being used for the original intention, which was a classroom, outdoor classroom for kids. But then suddenly people started taking it over for yoga, for other kinds of classes, and even like getting married there, which mainly architects, but a lot of people get married there. And then this is a view where you can see this was actually the first year before the plant started growing in, but how close it is to the city. So we envision this new pond space, this place, as almost like a zoo without cages, where animals would be voluntarily coming to display themselves. And it really started to work. You can see this, different views. Here's the extent of the pond itself. This is a 46-acre site. And the biodiversity has really started to increase and drawn people to this place. It's now in its 5th or 6th year, and the plants are really stabilized. So there was originally some black crowned night herons roosting on the site, 40 pair during migration, and that's increased to 400 pair. So they did really like it. And then the zoo is using this as a place to study animals, and there's even coyotes that like to come here at night mostly, so you don't see them, but it is a very good urban animal that they're able to adapt to, like a 6-block radius, each coyote, and they keep rat population down. So they're actually a very good urban animal, and they've also been using the site. And then dance and culture, people have used it for all kinds of surprising uses, like dance. And then one summer, I think it was 2 summers ago, the dîner en blanc, which is a French tradition of you hear about the dinner like the same day, and you wear all white and you go with a picnic and have a dinner, way to enjoy the space. And so what I like about this project, it's really, it's about ecology, and I think that's what we try to parallel ecology with our architecture project, because ecology is not about studying individual species of animals on their own. It's about the relationships between the different species and between the species and the environment. And so as architects, we could study the relationships between people and their place. And that would be, I think, the most successful way to get a project to resonate. The second project is the Writers Theater, and this is in Glencoe, Illinois. It's a small village on the north side of the city. And it's this theater company that's quite incredible. They started out a very small theater company, but very highly regarded. And they started in the back of a little bookstore in the village. And you had to go through the bookstore behind this black curtain, and there was an incredible stage where they were doing performances for an audience that it was really wanted to be challenged, and with content that was just like art can be, challenging. And they really supported this theater, only there wasn't really a place to continue the conversation after you saw some dramatic performance. And so the theater company wanted to expand. They also were using the ladies' book club also in the village. And the ladies were getting kind of tired of the theater company taking over their book club. So the idea was to build a new theater that could be part of this community and part of the scale of the architecture there, which is very small scale, but really energize the community, which is mostly a car-oriented place at this point. So we started looking back at oftentimes we go back, way back this time, to look at theater without walls. How could this theater energize the street instead of being hidden in the back of a bookshop? In the 13th century, theater was in the street, literally, and then during Shakespeare's time, they often had these courtyard theaters. And we thought if we could get the courtyard feeling, but also be visible to the street, which wasn't, for the 250-seat thrust stage, obviously you don't want natural light, and then they had a black box theater, which obviously you don't want, you need to make the sets and be enclosed. So we thought maybe the lobby would have the potential to be this third venue. And so here's a picture, an axonometric with the roof taken off. You can see the lobby space, which it functions as a before and after the theater discussion area. It functions as an outreach for schools nearby. They can do classes there. And it has this walkabout, which allows people to see into that space, but also see the city and the park nearby. And then from an architectural standpoint, we wanted to connect to this village, which honestly had a lot of kind of fake Tudor architecture, which is, but Tudor is a really interesting kind of architecture. So we looked at that. Tudor architecture was really the first building type that had a frame with infill, because before that everything was like masonry bearing walls. So we thought doing something with timber would be interesting, but taking it to the state of the art. And here's a plan. This is of the second level. In the blue is the walkabout, and it's almost like we conceived it as a canopy walk around this lobby. And then you can see the 250-seat venue here, which is a thrust stage. Very intimate performances was the goal. And then a black box theater here with green roofs and outdoor terrace space. Here's a little model of so in the future, as we get into the design of AAC, we will have models and options and things like this to help people visualize. But the really interesting thing for the wood technology was to try to use wood in tension. In other words, like ropes hanging the walkway. It hadn't been done before. This is the walkway. And we really wanted to push this technology because wood is capable of doing that. It just wasn't, no one had thought of using it like this, so it wasn't allowed in the building codes. So we worked with some of the best engineers figuring out how to hang this walkway. And I think it really contributes to the architectural technology oeuvre. You can see here the battens, as we call them, are clustered around the beams there. And then at the base, you know, it's really holding the walkway in tension, so there's a special detail at the base, which we call the cat's paw. and basically it's like widening the batten and adding wood shims into it to create a thicker connection instead of using bolts, which would actually take up way material. So here's an axon of it. And then to get it to be approved, we did have to test this, you know, to failure to make sure that it would work. That's our team on the test rig out in the middle of near Ottawa, Illinois, where the piece was made. But the good news was that the test piece never failed. In fact, the steel started to creak and scare everyone. So we met and surpassed the requirements of this wood being used in tension. So I'm really interested in technology and materials like wood, which are, you know, very renewable. This is how the cat's paws are made. You can see in the rigs there. And then here you can see during construction them working, holding up this walkway. And then some of the views of the finished project. This is kind of a gathering area, and the Women's Book Club actually meets here now. And then there's an outdoor terrace, so that can be used for pre-function. And then this is the stepping down of the lobby space and the walkabout, with using these different volumes to kind of fit into the city, the little village's streetscape. And then because of these trusses, you can see how transparent, how open this is. You can open these doors and they can spill out in the summer to the garden. So this has only been open 1 year right now, but it's really going to be interesting to see how the creative director, the artistic director from the theater will start to use it for different things. This is a picture inside the lobby. We reused all the wood that was cut down on site for interior elements, like the ticket booth here, and back in the back is the little bar. And this is the area where actually kids have started coming in after school that live here and using it for study space. And the theater is letting them do that because they want to be really part of the community. This has a really nice light quality to it. This is a rehearsal space which mimics the set size of the stage, the performance stage. And inside, this is the 250-seat thrust stage, where we reuse the brick of the building torn down on the site to create these acoustic walls. So the brick's all angled in different ways, and it helps to spread the sound around to make a really nice spoken word. You can see a little detail of it there. And then here's the image at night and during the really cold winter when it first opened, and then that was last summer, the first time they really started to get to use the building indoor-outdoor. So it's already really become, in the 1 year it's been open, it has been just an anchor. They've sold out all of their shows, and they really, it's allowing this theater company to be who they really were meant to be. You know, it really embodies their personality, and it's about, you know, contributing to this liveliness of the town. And then finally, I just wanted to show you a recent project that opened this fall, which is the University of Chicago Residence Hall and Dining Commons. And I think this project demonstrates different scales of community as well. It's an 800-bed residence hall, so 800 students live here, and it has a big dining hall for them and also for the public. University of Chicago is, some of you may know it, it's a collegiate Gothic style campus that's on the south side of Chicago. Here's the outline of the city beyond. And it is really, it was always about cloistering and protecting and the scholars and letting them study, which is, you know, it was a very valid idea at the time, but today the university really wants to open up to its community around it and to connect to the city that it's in. And so the pink dot is where our site is located on the very north end of the campus. And they asked us to create a connection to the Hyde Park area beyond, but also to help build relationships between the students in their short 4 years that they're there. How can they meet friends and start to, basically to help their performance in school, but also to make school more fun. They have the unfortunate moniker of where fun goes to die in school, and they want to change that. So it was a competition, and we called our entry Open House, and this is the site right up here. And this is a kind of a site study we did, looking at all the commercial areas that we want to connect to, and then the area of the campus, more of on an urban scale. And then in reality, we found that the campus had a lot of these portals, both original from the original school's construction, but also more modern, like this one here, to the Smart Museum, this was designed by Edward Larrabee Barnes, and it also had its own modern kind of portal here. And so we thought that would be a nice way to make this connection to the city. And you can see in our site plan, these kind of two, they're almost like birds, I guess, flying, or peace signs upside down. They're connecting these two figures, connecting from this new campus center to the city beyond. And we really thought of, again, we went out beyond the given site plot line, which was just right here, and thought about this whole entire thing as a quad. And so these linear resident halls, these fingers kind of step down in scale. You can see them here from highest to smallest to relate to this context. And they create courtyards for semi-private areas for the students to gather, whereas the big central courtyard is for the whole campus. So the portal is really created by the buildings. You can see it here. This is the tallest, medium, and smallest. And the middle one kind of bridges over this portal. And the whole plaza is activated with retail, lobbies, community commons on the second floor, so that there's always these kind of eyes on the street and connectivity to the main plaza that connects to the city. And so that place I was just showing you is up here on that plaza, and then you come through here into a bigger quad. And then the dining commons wraps around here as a low building with a green roof that becomes a garden just like this one. So you can see the narrow fingers, and this very subtle kind of curve in the bar makes it so that when you arrive, you don't see this endless corridor. It's a kind of always curving just slightly out of sight. But the different scales of community is really interesting. I think we thought a lot about how students can come together as a student body in this big dining room. The orange are the two community commons. So for every 400 students, it breaks down. It's kind of going from the whole city scale to the campus scale to the project scale of 800, and then 400 each here. And that's a room that has a piano in it, and it's kind of a place where the faculty that lives with the students in this complex, each one has a faculty head that treats it like the living room where parents can come and see their kids and recitals can happen. And then the purple are really the key, the DNA of the building, which is the house hub. Here's the portal coming into campus. Here's the space where the students all come into this one space before going up to their respective rooms. And then the dining, which has this great south light and these screens to help with the energy performance. And these are the big house tables. you know, the kind of like the Harry Potter tables where you sit with your house. So every 100, there's 100 members in each house, and they always can go and sit at their table and see other members of their house, and it's a way to create that community. The hubs, this is a very first model of the hubs. These are 2 hubs, one here and one here, and they're 3-story spaces. So for every 3 stories, there's 100 students. And then this hub is almost like a little townhouse inserted into the tower, which has a kitchen and dining and study areas and game room. And that's where the students can gather with their house members. But what I like about the project, actually, this math of the number of houses actually reads onto the facade. So you can see in the physical model, it's kind of broken down into 3 stories, 3 stories, 3 stories with the house hubs here. And the concrete precast panels are 3 stories in height, so they represent that connection. That was a more advanced model. And here's some pictures of how it was on the day it opened, which we weren't allowed to go back and photograph after the students really moved in, but I have had a chance to peek in, and they're really taking these spaces over with all kinds of posters and really making it their own, which is great. Here you can see a little bit of starting at that up here. And so it's a place for students to get to know each other in this short period of time, and also create mentoring relationships. Just a little bit on the outside, they asked us to somehow connect to the collegiate Gothic architecture that is the pride of the University of Chicago. And so we did this analysis, and this is just, you know, looking at the qualities that existed in collegiate Gothic and also in Gothic architecture, including the kind of rhythm. The depth of the wall was very important, this tracery element, and then these window grills. One of the things I thought was amazing, just from a, you know, like, wow, I wish we could do this now, is this 3-dimensional curvature of the facade, this almost like a warping surface that is, you know, was done by hand at the time, carved out of stone. And so what we were really looking for was a way to achieve maybe some of those, that flowing lines. This is a rendering of the 3-story high precast panels, which is actually possible to do today, but we're doing it in precast concrete with a very special mix of concrete. And then inside, as you saw here on the outside, this grille is participating in the performance of the window to reduce energy use. So we're for sure on track for LEED Gold here, but potentially LEED Platinum. It's a very high-performing building with all the systems integrated. So here the grille operates. Students can open the window all the way and get 100% fresh air, which is really great for, you know, your performance as well. It's you know, great to have fresh air. Typically, you can only open these windows 4 inches because there's a lock mechanism on them. And then there's also frit on the lower level of the window, using a radiant system in the slab, so there's no, you know, ductwork flying through there. Very nice and clean. I'm sure they're not as clean as this after the students moved in. But we do a lot of mock-ups and things to, like, this is just in our office to see how big the window is going to be. A little value engineering here, the yellow line, but to make sure that it meets the, you know, the scale of the human being. And so this facade worked out beautifully, and I should mention this was a fast-track project, so we had to really work together with the contractor to order the precast panels way before we were completely finished with the project. So, but it was one of the most successful elements, I think, on the project. So on the 2 lower buildings, it's the straight pleat, and then on the taller building, it's kind of this curvature of this pleat that really, I think, connects nicely to the historic buildings. That's what I have for today, and I am so happy to take any questions that you have for me or from our.
If anyone has any questions, it's probably best if you come up to the microphone. That way everyone can hear.
Everybody who knows me in the room will know I'm about to ask a sustainability question. Certainly you have the connection to ecology is good, and you've done some certification programs, and that eliminates some of my questions there initially. But my question right now is about green roofs. We're doing some Fortune 500 level work with some clients who are really sold on green roofs, and I think they've been sold on it for a lot of the wrong reasons, which is energy performance. They don't seem to perform in our energy models as well as just a white roof does. We're not that much better to pay for themselves. What's the impetus? I mean, you had green roofs on all 3 projects. The inspiration can't be understated. Maybe stormwater?
Well, you know, there's stormwater is one. Of course, with a white roof, you can still prevent heat island effect, but I'm really interested in like the potential for habitat for, insects and bees and birds and all those things that are part of our city that we don't always notice. So we've gone from doing maybe a green roof for stormwater retention to on our own building that I showed you there, we're doing massive 48 different species of native plants that create what ecologists call a sky island. And that is really, you know, it's an important, it's almost like this important island to promote biodiversity within. Because if you can have some insects up there and things like that, it's for food for birds. Birds kill mosquitoes, and we have, you know, diseases that are spread. So we really have to watch our cities develop in the future toward trying to maintain more biodiversity for resiliency's sake. And so on our rooftop, we did a BioBlitz, which is we took a reading of how many species in the first year we could find. So with scientists and ecologists came over to use us as a test case, and we took samples through the plants and then counted how many different kinds of insects and bugs, and then did a count, and then we'll do that every year. So we're trying to see if we're actually increasing, you know, over the time, and how it's functioning in the city. So there's a lot of different reasons for doing a green roof, but it does have good energy performance as long as you have, you know, the right insulation below.
So how do you sell it to the client when they're paying for larger environmental benefit?
Well, I think partly is, you know, as you go bigger, you're also looking at that roof, and it's much more beautiful to look at a green garden or a green roof with, even if it's sedum, than it is to look at a rubber white roof. So, and especially for the University of Chicago, they knew that a lot of the residents, because of the dining commons is low, and so you see it from above. And so we really wanted that to present itself as a green space, you know, that just more, so that there's that aesthetic appeal. There's, you know, more and more people are looking for the performance, and also hopefully in the future more biodiversity. Hi.
There's a lot of talk about community here, and I just wonder, how do you define community? I mean, this art center is paid for in large measure, you might say, by city funding, tax money. It's privately owned, but there's still input from people throughout the big area. Anyway, this is a great concern because a lot of people think of this city as having many communities. How does the art center manage to encompass this idea?
That's a great question.
Is the mic on?
I don't know if the mic's on.
Is the microphone on?
It was before. It might just be too loud.
Let me see.
I didn't do it.
See if it- Oh, here, why don't we just take it out? No, it's taped in.
Oh, it's taped in.
Oh, that's right, here we go.
No, I just don't think it's working.
Let me see.
It's working.
Okay.
Is it working now?
Yeah, you have to hold it real
Sorry.
close
I
there.
just asked what is meant by community. We are a city of many communities, or at least people describe themselves in that way. And how can the art center be inclusive to include as many people as possible in this new venture?
You want me to?
If you want to start, and I can.
Okay. Because I'm new to Little Rock, I'm really interested in understand and get to know the different communities that could benefit from being at such an art center that has so many interesting programs and can bring art to everyone, and the amazing qualities of that you have when you discover art or make art. And so, I'm just now getting into it and trying to understand the communities, but we're planning on having a number of outreach sessions to help us to understand the communities, but also to hear what people have to say. Like what could the art center be to what could it mean to different communities, and what's preventing them from coming here, for example.
So communities, I think, we think both geographically and communities of kind of different diverse backgrounds. And so we want to approach all of those and get input from as many different community stakeholders as we can and community groups to understand what it is that they're looking for in an art center and how we can serve the largest community that we possibly can. Because that's really why we're here, why we do what we do, is we want to bring art to as many people as we can. I mean, obviously we have a state services program which goes throughout the state of Arkansas, so you could say that for the Arkansas Art Center, our community is really statewide because we go to, last year was it 42 counties in Arkansas. So that is a big community to try to serve. And we step it down, kind of as we look closer and closer to MacArthur Park and our immediate surroundings, Little Rock and North Little Rock, and kind of go out in concentric circles. But we're trying to involve as many folks as we can. So if you have a suggestion of a community that you think that we're not reaching or that you would like to see involved, please tell me so we can add. I mean, we have this list of folks that we're going to pull together for these community sessions. So just let me know, send it to me. I know you have my email, so just send that in, and we'll add it to our list. It could already be there. We'll just pull all that together. And again, try to get as much input as we can to create the kind of buildings that Jeanne's been talking about, the ones that invite people to participate, right? Because what an art center can do, and what museums often do, are places where people can gather. Artists often tackle and approach what can be difficult subject matter for social issues and others. And museums often function as this place where people can come together and kind of think about the more difficult issues facing society today in a safe and respectful place. And we want to create that kind of hub where people want to come and be and just kind of think in a broader scope, right? And think about broader communities and meanings and backgrounds, and architecture can help do that.
Thank you for coming a little while.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see what you're going to do. We have the city of Little Rock and the Art Center share a very valuable asset in Little Rock. I don't know if you've talked about the Pike Literature House or not in your discussions. But it's a critical part of Little Rock's history. And it's had a difficult time finding a place. What's it for? What's it going to do? How's it going to serve the community? So I'm just simply asking that Mayor Stodley, I know you're back there, you will consider adding that to your list of many things, goals that you'll have on this job before it's finished, and see if there's something that you can come up with that will make this a much more prominent part of the art center. Thank you.
So the question was about the Pike Fletcher Terry House, and for it to be involved in this process of the renovation and expansion and kind of new vision for the art center. And we haven't necessarily talked about that as yet. We're kind of concentrating on this building right now and what its needs are, but that is a conversation that we are going to have going forward, because as you know, that house is a key piece of Little Rock history. And I know that the two of us have talked about this. It's a beautiful piece of Greek Revival architecture, and it needs to find its true calling, you know, and find something that's going to be right for it going forward long term, right? Not kind of short-term solutions, but something that fits it just right for long-term vitality. And so that's a conversation that we'll have as we kind of move forward with the project. When we look at what these spaces are going to be like, is how that property fits into to what we're doing. Anybody else? Oh, the man.
Hi, Jeanne. Welcome to Little Rock.
Thank you.
I know you're going to be spending a lot of time here with my friends over here at Polk Stanley. So I've got first of all, as a follow-up to that, and let me just say that certainly the city wants to see a very meaningful and active use for that very historic building, probably, if not the second most historic building in the city. And so we've talked about how once we figure out what we're doing here, how the city might be able to be a more active participant and perhaps a steward of that building. So I just want everybody to know that. That's very much a very important element for the city and for me personally. I have a question. I really enjoyed and was fascinated with your interest in making sure that the ecology of the surroundings plays into how you create and develop a new art center. And so the ecology here is obviously a park, a pond, the art center, and another very historic building, a historic military museum. And I'm just curious if you could expound a little bit on the challenges and the fascination with how that might be played out as we begin to realize what's going to be happening here.
Yeah. Thanks for the question. No, I think what we're just embarking on this kind of information gathering, listening aspect of the work. So I could say what I just think from an outsider's point of view at this point without the benefit of having those conversations yet. But what I see is, kind of underutilized park that is, looks to me that it requires a lot of maintenance because of its mowed lawns. It seems to be a little out of balance in terms of the ecology, frankly, and doesn't seem like many people are using it to the capacity that it could be a really engaging element in the city that could be, vibrantly activated. And I haven't seen it at all different times, so maybe there are times when it is active. But I think that it's a great asset to have it. I mean, it's a great asset. How can it be brought to its fullest use? Kind of like what I was showing you with that Lincoln Park Zoo pond. It was just, people thought of it as a little bit of an eyesore, but they were still using the space. But now it's really a magnet, and it brings all kinds of people together and students, and it's a much richer environment. People bring their friends from out of town just to go there to walk around that boardwalk. So there's a lot of potential in it. I don't know how much of the park is in our budget to work on, but we'll definitely be offering, and we've seen the master plan that was done a number of years ago, starting to imagine what it could be. So I think, we'll definitely be offering more thoughts on that as we go forward. And maybe there are different ways different budgets that it could be part of in order to see something happen there.
And that was also something that was part of the discussions early on when we were looking for an architect, was the goal of integrating the art center with the park itself. That the art center is built almost very much like sort of the University of Chicago. I mean, it's sort of built as a fortress in a park. There are very few windows that actually face the park. It's sort of seen as this come into this cultural enclave, but don't engage in the park. And what we want to do is turn that inside out and take advantage of the asset that's here with the park. And if it can be developed in a way very much like the Lincoln Park Zoo project, where there are many sort of teaching areas along the way. What you didn't show, but I know from being there, is at that pond, there's a whole, there's a big plaque on ecology and biodiversity and why certain plants are planted around the edge of that pond to filter the runoff, and it talks about the depth of the pond and what that means, what different depths of water mean in terms of fish survival and ecology and oxygen production. So if the educational opportunities within the Arts Center can spill out into the park, where our visitors, young visitors, adult visitors, can have an educational experience here and then continue that educational experience outside in the park in a casual way. I think that is, to me, that's kind of the ultimate dream, is that it becomes not only an enjoyable outside space, but also does double duty in teaching people about the importance of kind of these kinds of spaces and how we preserve those spaces that we live in to make for a healthier city. What's that answer?
This is
Oh.
not quite along the same lines, but have you had a chance to explore Little Rock yet? It's a wonderful city. And then your early interest in bridges. Have you gotten to see the Big Dam Bridge and the Clinton Presidential Park Bridge? You have to see this.
Okay.
Experience.
Well, thank you for that. I haven't seen all the bridges yet, but I did actually see the Little Rock, which I found out that a lot of people don't even know there is one. But I saw it on a map, and then the first thing I did when I got here was like, I have to see the little rock, and went over there, and there it was. So it's, I think, but so I know I'm really excited to see more of the city and really get to know it, and thanks for those 2 recommendations.
So I think that's our time. If you picked up the survey when you came in, you don't have to turn it in today. Obviously there's a lot of writing to be done. So there's an address on the bottom. Go ahead and fill that out. We want to hear what your thoughts are about the project and about improving the Arts Center. And then you can go ahead and just send that in to us, and we're going to be pulling that data along with all the data that we get from all these different community conversations that we're going to have around the city. So fill those out, send them in. Thank you for coming.
Seems your return could be increased if you had an email address, so it could be scanned and emailed.
Okay, we can. Let's see, the email address, what would be the best one?
Give your email address.
I'll give you Sharon Howell's email address, so SHOWELL at arkansasartscenter.org. Easy. SHOWELL at arkansasartscenter.org.